Welcome to the Huddle Sports Network, where we're breaking boundaries and redefining podcasting. Broadcasting live on 6 different platforms, we're bringing you the latest in sports like never before. Imagine tuning into real-time discussions, expert analyses, and fan interactions all at your fingertips. Each platform offers a unique experience, whether you're on YouTube, Facebook, or Twitch. We're not just sharing stories, we're creating a community of passionate sports enthusiasts. Join us as we dive deep into the evolution of podcasting, where every episode is a chance to engage, debate, and celebrate the world of sports. This is where your voice matters and the game never stops. Welcome to the Huddle Sports Network, where we're breaking boundaries and redefining podcasting. Broadcasting live on 6 different platforms, we're bringing you the latest in sports like never before, where sports passion meets podcasting brilliance. I'm Mike, the Bear fan, and alongside Bill, the Packer fan, and our buddy Ken Catalone, we're bringing you an incredible lineup of 38 diverse podcasters. Each one brings their unique flavor to the table, covering everything from game analysis to behind-the-scenes stories. Imagine diving deep into the minds of experts who live and breathe football, sharing insights that you won't find anywhere else.
Happy New Year, everyone, and welcome to the first episode of the Michigan Sports Truth Podcast in 2025 on the Huddle Sports Network. I'm Taylor Phillips. He's Ed Smith. Happy New Year, Ed.
Happy New Year to you, Taylor, and Happy New Year to everybody else that's listening. Hope everyone had a nice, safe, wonderful holiday season. And now we're here to ring in the new year with a bang.
And watching in video form, too, and it's on YouTube via StreamYard. So, Lions, Red Wings, Pistons. Red Wings have made a big coaching change, let me tell you that. Little Tigers signing Gleyber Torres, the Wolverines beating Alabama again. The Lions, first off, they got revenge, finally. It's been years long overdue. They beat the San Francisco 49ers 40-34, and it was on the road, too. Usually it's a tough place to play, but the 49ers this season have been struggling. The Lions defense just was nowhere in the first half, but they finally came to life, except in a different way. They didn't force any punts, but they forced 2 long missed field goals attempts by Jake Moody and Kirby Joseph, the difference maker defensively, with 2 picks. The first one was an absolute gift. Brock Purdy overthrew his man. It came right to Kirby Joseph, giving the Lions the chance to take the lead, and they did. And then Kirby Joseph again, this time crept up from behind his opposing wide receiver and picked that off. I just screamed in joy. I know this is not hockey, but I sounded like I was unleashing my inner Ken Daniels out of that. I've been calling because I was practicing play-by-play just like I have as a play-by-play commentator for the Ithaca Yellow Jackets, which I'm trying to get back to, by the way. But all seriousness, back to the Lions. Big picks by Kirby Joseph. Jahmyr Gibbs, 30-yard touchdown to pretty much seal it. The 49ers had a very little chance to make a comeback as of that. Josh Dobbs did chip in almost garbage time, but that onside kick was terrible. The Lions just took 2 knees, and that was it. It ended up a slugfest, but the Lions finally beat the San Francisco 49ers, and they stay ahead of the curve of the number 1 seed in the NFC, still tied record-wise with the Minnesota Vikings for the NFC North Division, which sets up the NFC North title game Week 18, which we'll get to a little bit later on. But, Ed, just amazing to get that gorilla off their backs.
Yeah, Taylor, this was a perfect example of revenge being served. And this is not only just revenge for what happened at the scene of the crime for the NFC Championship game. This was, check this, Taylor, the first road win against the 49ers dating back to 1975.
Oh, my God. 1975.
That is a 14-game span. We're talking, remember, we're not just talking Levi Stadium. We're talking the old Candlestick, too.
Wow.
So we're dating all the way back to 75. That's pre-Joe Montana, pre-Steve Young, pre-Dynasty and all of that. That was the last time that the Lions had gotten a win on the road against the 49ers. So, yeah, they got payback for that, payback for the NFC Championship game. And speaking of winning on the road, that was their last road game of the season. And for the first time in franchise history, the Lions can say that they won every single road game that was on their schedule, 8-0. Remember, everyone has memories of the Matt Millen years when this team was notorious, not just for losing, but especially for losing on the road, setting records for consecutive road losing streaks in multiple stretches of years. Now, we've gotten to a point where we have no problem going on the road because we know how well this team can do on the road in any circumstances, any condition. And by the way, talk about circumstances and conditions. We know about the fact that this team has completely wrecked on the defensive front of injuries, as was San Francisco on both sides of the ball as well, which kind of mirrored the fact that, honestly, if it wasn't, this felt like a throw the record out kind of game type of feel. It definitely felt that way at the start of the first quarter with how San Francisco was just moving the ball almost at will against our defense. And frankly, like you said, Taylor, that whole first half, we could not get a stop. The only time we could get a stop was when Moody missed his first of 3 kicks. But thankfully, adjustments were made in the second half. I think what we saw in that first half, mainly, especially based on the fact that DJ Reader had a bit of a slow start to the game of himself, missing a pursuit on an edge route that could have led to a tackle, instead led to a first down, and he had a penalty near down in the red zone as well. I think that was him trying to overcompensate for the fact that Ali McNeil was lost for the season. That meant another impact player on your defensive line that was not only giving you run stop protection, but also getting after the quarterback, much similar to how Aiden Hutchinson was doing before he went down. So that was 2 major big key cogs, one on your edge, one on your interior, on your D line going down. And now you're really seeing the effects of that showing up. I know people want to get on Zadarius Smith's case a little bit. I'd still say Zadarius is doing as fine a job as he can. He's doing his role well. He just got here. And you got to remember the fact that, hey, let's not forget, Aleem did go down as well. So now that's, again, the injuries have been piling up, but most especially amongst our front 7. Entire linebacking core is essentially decimated. Same thing with our defensive line. So it's not really a surprise that we saw Brock Purdy get the protection the amount that he did, seeing them move the ball more effectively on the run, whether it be through Deebo Samuel or the amount of running backs that they had, or even Purdy himself in a couple of those scramble runs that probably gave some a little bit of PTSD back to January. But thankfully, adjustments were made, the team overcame them, and the difference you saw here, which kind of was like a mirror flip of what happened back in the NFC Championship game. The Niners went on a big second half run, 24-7. Guess what the scoring margin was in the second half of this game Monday night? 24-7 Lions. And not to mention the fact we saw the Lions not only having trust in their kicker to make the big kick necessary, but also still knowing their DNA, when to go for it on 4th down. And even though it didn't always pay off, it paid off when it mattered most. Jared Goff getting that touchdown to put them up in front, or rather, might have been either that or it was the one that had to be the.
He had Sam Laporta for that game.
Was the one
go ahead touchdown.
I don't know if that was the go ahead touchdown.
Oh, no, wait. That was a game time touchdown with a 2-point conversion caught by Tim Patrick.
Yeah. And that drive in particular was, I thought, Goff's best drive of the entire night.
Amon-Ra St. Brown got the go-ahead touchdown.
Go-ahead touchdown, correct. But I think in terms of Goff's case, that was his best drive on the entire night. And on a night that he went 26 of 34, 303 yards, 3 touchdowns, 132 passer rating, that is the 4th straight game that Goff has thrown for at least 3 touchdowns or more. And I mentioned his completion numbers. He is now the 2nd quarterback in NFL history with 8 games of at least 75% or more completion percentage. The only other guy to do that, a guy by the name of Tom Brady. All right. In terms of what Goff has been doing this season alone, it was his 11th game of which he had at least 70% or more in completion rate, which not only ties the most for second most all time in a season in NFL history. That was Goff's 7th on the road this year, which again, a further testament to how much of a road warrior team that this mentality that this team has installed or instilled in themselves. But that also tied Drew Brees himself with the most such games of 70% completion rate in a single season in NFL history. Drew Brees was a guy known, probably above all else, for his accuracy, and Jared Goff has matched that and then some in this season. I know he's not going to get the MVP, but to me, damn it, this team is not 14-2 right now without Jared Goff doing what he's doing. And when you have guys like Amon-Ra St. Brown, guys like Jahmyr Gibbs, guys like Sam Laporta, who, by the way, seems to be woken out of his earlier first half funk. He's coming alive strongly at the second half and at the closing of this season.
Jameson Williams, 2 touchdowns.
J-Mo, exactly. J-Mo with a rushing touchdown and a reception touchdown.
Hook and ladder.
Quite interesting to note that in his last 2 games against the 49ers, J-Mo has 4 touchdowns. And yes, that hook and ladder play was Ben Johnson as absolute most sicko best.
As usual.
I don't know. And in terms of J-Mo himself, with that performance, he is now not only the 3rd Lions wide receiver ever with a rushing touchdown and a reception touchdown in the same game. Amon-Ra, by the way, was one of the other 2 guys that did that. But in terms of J-Mo, he is now just 33 yards shy of 1,000 receiving yards on the season. When you consider of how much of a breakout season people wanted this and expected this to be for J-Mo, he has more than delivered and then some. And he's on the verge of 1,000-yard season. Ben Johnson has talked about his growth. Jared Goff has talked about his growth. Dan Campbell's talked about his growth. People have been sticking up for J-Mo all year and for good reason. And when you have guys around him, guys like St. Brown, that try to be that still that mentorship around him, bring guys like Teddy Bridgewater back into the fold, back into the locker room to help be that mentor for guys like him. You see how it works out. And speaking of St. Brown, he had himself quite a nice shabby game himself. 8 catches on 10 targets for 60 yards in a tutty. With that performance, not only did he pass Golden Tate for 5th most catches in franchise history, which now has him sit at over 416, he also tied Calvin Johnson in 2 separate and distinct categories. Most touchdowns over a span of 4 years with his 33rd TD grab. And also, he tied Megatron for the most games with a touchdown catch in a single season. That was the 2011 season in which Stafford played his first full year healthy, and the Lions had finally made the playoffs for the first time since about 99 or 2000. That's what Amon-Ra just did in this year alone, and it more than deservedly earned him a 3rd straight Pro Bowl selection in his young career, which means besides him, only Calvin and Herman Moore are the only receivers in Lions history to have done such a feat in a 3-year stretch at the very least. Now, in terms of who else was on that offense that deserved Pro Bowl honors, well, you got to look no further than Jahmyr Gibbs. Sonic had another game of 150-plus yards from scrimmage, 117 on the ground, 46 reception, and of course, that aforementioned 30-yard rushing touchdown that sealed the game. With what he did in this game and, of course, last game against the Bears, Jahmyr now is the first player since Golden Tate in 2014 to have 150-plus yards from scrimmage in consecutive games. And he's the first running back to do so since Kevin Jones back in 2004. So we talk about the type of dynamic weapon that Jahmyr Gibbs has proven himself to be since he's gotten here, and the increased workload that he has gotten in the past few weeks with the injury to David Montgomery. He has not only strived, he has also thrived, because he's had at least 70-plus or more scrimmage yards in every single game this season. So that means no matter what, every single time he's touched the ball, he's been bound to do nothing but get yards, get production, and get you scores. And in terms of setting a single franchise record in that regard, he also joins, speaking of Pro Bowl honors, 2 other guys in Lions history as a running back to make the Pro Bowl in their first 2 career seasons. Those 2 guys, well, I figured you know one of them. The one is Barry Sanders, but the other one, Billy Sims. So pristine elite company for Jameer, as mentioned with St. Brown as well. But it's not just the offense. That defense that we mentioned before that was having their struggles, their problems in the first half, they got things done and figured out in the second half. And like you mentioned, Taylor, Kirby Joseph with the 2 interceptions, getting his first picks, by the way, since week 11. Now that gives him 9 on the season. He leads the entire league. And not just that, ever since he entered the league in 2022, he has led the league in both pass deflections and interceptions. And that 16th interception now that he has notched up and under his belt, that is now the most for any Lions player that's tally up in the 3-season span since the 1970 merger. And you mean to tell me a guy like that, who, and frankly, should be one of the leading candidates for Defensive Player of the Year as well, he can't get a nomination for the Pro Bowl? Because when you consider about this, it is a combination of fan vote and also vote from coaches and players and maybe selective members in the media. So the fact that Kirby, even though he clearly led and fan vote, did not get even a first-team alternate, but a second-team alternate.
People are stupid for not.
But also, it's an example of sometimes when someone paints a reputation on you, that can spread faster than any truth. Because remember what Matthew Stafford had said when he was mic'd up in that playoff game, calling Kirby Joseph a dirty player for that hit on Tyler Higbee, and how fast that narrative spread like wildfire. Even though Kirby Joseph has never been fined, he's never been suspended, he's never had any type of issue on the field or off the field. He has never even been penalized for those type of hits that we saw Matthew Stafford accuse him of being dirty of being. But trust me, that got a hold. Players took notice of that. Coaches took notice of that. And that reputation has stuck to Kirby since. And that reputation is what was used against him in this Pro Bowl selection process. It's dumb. It's stupid. It is completely bogus. But in Kirby's own words, we're not focused on the Pro Bowl. We're focused on the Super Bowl.
Exactly. Yep. That's what matters more. So, with that being said, the road to that Super Bowl continues, but we also have to look at some injured players actually at least trying to come back. Alex Anzalone, he's close to returning. He was limited practice Wednesday. He was full practice Thursday. He'll apparently be full practice Friday too. So he's probably gonna come back. I said probably. Not saying officially yet, but also Khalif Raymond is also making a comeback.
Yeah, all signs are pointing to not only Anzalone potentially playing this week, but also Khalif Raymond as well, which are 2 key, highly needed pieces, especially for Anzalone's case on the defensive end, because we have seen how badly the linebacking core has gotten abused by opposing offenses in the past few weeks since Anzalone, and frankly, not just Anzalone, but Malcolm Rodriguez going down with injury as well. Let's not forget, Rodrigo did tear his ACL. So getting Anzalone back to give not only your defensive captain, your QB of the defense back out on the field, that also takes off some pressure off Jack Campbell too. Now, granted, he's been balling out. I believe he leads the entire team in tackles, especially now with Anzalone's absence. But he definitely would probably like a breather or two in certain situations and certain snaps. And getting Anzalone back should help with that tremendously. As before, getting Khalif Raymond back as well, that adds another wrinkle to that offense, because we've seen in recent weeks with the David Montgomery injury and Jameer taking an upper workload, we've seen other running backs get another opportunity, like guys like Netflix, Craig Reynolds, guys like Jamar Jefferson. I wouldn't be surprised that if Raymond were to be available for either this week or in the playoffs, you're going to see him being implemented in one of those type of special package features, special package plays where he's in the backfield as one of those backup running backs, so to speak. Because we've seen him being used out of the backfield before. That's how you got a touchdown in one of those blowout games earlier this season. So in addition to showing off his versatility with his return game, do not be surprised that we see Leaf being utilized more on the offense when he gets back. And speaking of offense, Christian Mahogany on the offensive line was limited with illness, but I suspect if he's available, he should be ready to go for Sunday. which points out to one of the keys that I have coming up in this upcoming preview against the Vikings, by the way.
Yeah, there was one more player that was limited due or actually listed with illness as a no practice. Let me look it up right now. It was Emmanuel Mosley. Mahogany didn't practice on Thursday either. But they're both out. They were both non-practice with illness. Jack Campbell with a rib, full practice. Amik Robertson, full practice with a calf. Khalif Raymond, of course, full practice both Wednesday and Thursday. So
and Anzalone was full practice as well.
Like I mentioned before. So of course, David Montgomery no practice. He's definitely going to be out for that. So anyway, let's get to that. The meat of the matter: Vikings and Lions. The Lions are favored -3. They were 2.5 before, but now it's back up to 3. So this could go either way.
It definitely could. It is being called winner take all for a reason, because not only is the division title on the line with the NFC North, but also the all-important number 1 seed with the NFC is on the line as well, because it is guaranteed the winner of this game, they get the 1 seed, they get the first round bye, they get home field throughout the playoffs. Loser, they get the 5 seed, they got to go on the road. It's quite crazy and unthinkable to think that a team that won at least 14 games won't get a chance to potentially have any home playoff game, but that is the nature of the business with current playoff formatting and seeding of the NFL. They have not yet taken a cue from what we've seen of what the NBA has done as of late, in terms of, hey, if you want to do this fairly and properly, if you got the better record or the best record, you should have yourself a home playoff game. But regardless, this is what the cards are dealt with. So this is what the situation is at hand. And with knowing what we know based on previous data, intel, analysis from previous games, obviously in years past, but also against in this season alone, and knowing on the tape what the Vikings can and what they have, what they provide, seeing what Sam Darnold has done, seeing what Aaron Jones has done, seeing the weapons that they have with Jordan Addison and Justin Jefferson and Naylor and of course, TJ Hawkinson, who will be available for this game. The keys of what mistakes to avoid repeating from the last game, and also mistakes to avoid repeating from what we've seen for the last couple of games as of late. And that is one of them would be avoiding the slow start. Whether it be trying to not give up an opening drive touchdown on defense or not going 3 and out on the offense, you got to find a way to not start slow, because more often than not, if you keep starting slow against high-quality teams, you're going to put yourself like you did against the Bills and like you did earlier against the Vikings. It's going to be very difficult to try and come back from. So I would say avoid the slow start, try to get an early lead as much as you can. And most importantly, you got to finish in the red zone, because they were having some problems trying to finish drives with touchdowns a little bit in the first half. They were able to fix that, make adjustments with that going forward. Definitely, this game to me is going to be one that's going to be decided of what each team does in the red zone. If you can limit the Vikings to more field goals than touchdowns, you're good. You just got cash in on your end and finish with more drives in the end zone than not. And I already mentioned guys like Jettis and Addison and Naylor and Hawk, but
they got to be covered.
They got to be covered. And thankfully, you got Milifonu back. You have Anzalone back as well. You have guys that know their place, know their setting on what to do out there. You still have Branch and Joseph obviously out there, who knows how to handle and how to cover Jefferson. Now, granted, he's had himself a litany of good games against the Lions in years past, but he did have about 80 or so yards in just his last outing against Detroit. Granted, he still did have a touchdown, but Brian Branch ended up with an interception. So it just comes down to the defense replicating that, trying to get as many turnovers as you can out of Sam Darnold, because the better pressure that you inflict on him, the better. chances you are of getting a turnover, getting a crucial takeaway. And on the opposite side of things, Goff has got to be ready to face another blitzkrieg attack from Brian Flores and his defense. Because, granted, he did do magnificent in the last game, in the first game back in Minneapolis, where what was it? He had about, including that game rather, he's proven to be quite efficient and successful, completing over 77% of his passes, throwing for 5 touchdowns against the blitz on certain pass rush situations, and not to mention the fact that Amon-Ra St. Brown has averaged himself a good numbers against the Minnesota Vikings as well. Jahmyr Gibbs himself had 160 yards from scrimmage in the last game, and frankly, that is the formula of how to replicate a similar victory. You got to make every possession count. Know for a fact that, hey, knowing how banged up your defense is, knowing guys like Justin Jefferson on the other side of the field, this may come down to a situation to where, because remember, last game, no points at all, no punts at all. So 10 touchdowns and no punts combined between each team, both teams. Think about if that's probably the first time ever in NFL history something like that has happened. I would not be surprised if we saw something similar in this effect, where it's another high-scoring affair. Probably, a difference in this will be 1 or 2 takeaways or turnovers by the other team, 1 or 2, drives finishing differently in the red zone for one versus the other, and just crucial coaching decisions. That's all it comes down to it, because we know Dan Campbell will go for it on 4th down, especially now, knowing what this defense can and cannot do. It's just a matter of, hey, okay, what's Kevin O'Connell going to do as a responder?
Hopefully that's just in Vikings territory.
But still, you never know, man. If you're near midfield and you feel like this is a crucial drive.
Yeah, that too.
It's a crucial drive.
Just not deep in your own territory.
That I can agree with. The going for it on your own 30, unless you absolutely have to, no need for it at all. That I can agree with. But other than that, it just feels like a game where you will feel lucky and feel fortunate to have this one in the home crowd at Ford Field, as opposed to being on the road to Minnesota. So I think that's going to work in your benefit as well. The Sunday night flex, knowing the fact that it's going to be the absolute last game of the regular season to be televised, game 272 of 272. It's a lot of pressure, a lot of eyeballs, a lot of attention. But I did mention that little stat way back at the beginning of the Lions being 10-2 in primetime games under Dan Campbell. That could prove to be a good omen for what we see on this Sunday night. So as to how I think this is going to go, the Lions -3, I think that's a fair spread. I wouldn't be surprised if we see a 38-35, 34-31 type of deal, or even a 39-36, where once again it comes down to Jake Bates getting a key field goal, the Lions getting a crucial takeaway on defense, and guys like St. Brown and Gibbs and J-Mo stepping up and making big plays, and Laporta making plays when it matters most. Don't be surprised if we see another, heroic performance from Tim Patrick, or we see a Brock Wright touchdown, or we see, Ben Johnson empty out the whole bag and go deep in the well, by seeing, trick plays by Penei Sewell, some of that effect. So expect any and everything in this game, because we know what's at stake, we know what's on the line. So I expect high-end drama for sure, but fun, excitement, and entertainment throughout. That culminates with a Lions win.
Yeah, it's going to be a push. In other words, I'm going to go Lions 37, Vikings 34. It's going to be down to the wire. It's going to be a battle of epic proportions. It's going to be close. I predict it to be a close one the entire 60 minutes.
This is, I believe, the first game, or the terms of combination of win totals between two teams in a regular season game, the highest win total combination matchup we've ever seen in a regular season game in NFL history. So that alone speaks for itself, the type of magnitude of game that this is, besides the aforementioned stipulations that are at stake as well.
Yeah. And so for the loser taking the 5th seed, whichever it is, they could still play the 4th seeded team on the road, not the second seed, because that would be saved. For example, that would be the second seed. For example, would be saved for the divisional playoff round.
Right. Well, yeah. Or in that case, yeah. Or even potentially in it's the one seed.
So in other words, if the Lions were to lose this game, they would still play the 4th seed in the wild card round, and not instead of the 2 seed in the wild card round. Because think about this: if they play the 4th seed, they have a better chance of winning on the road. Because think about this: the Lions haven't even won a playoff game on the road since God knows when, and they might if they lose to the Vikings at home, they still may have a better chance of accomplishing that feat of winning a playoff game on the road. It's not going to be too easy, but still, it's a better chance.
True, and granted, you're playing likely either against the Rams or whoever's winning the NFC South between the Bucs and the Falcons. But I'm thinking, for practical purposes, knowing that you so badly, desperately need another bye week because you have not had a bye week since week 4 or 5. You had the earliest bye week out of any team in the entire league. You need the extra rest like humans need oxygen. That's what you need right now. So, if anything, your focus should be not about, oh, we can do this on the road, do that road. Screw that. Your focus is we need to get home field and we need to get rest and we need to get healthy. Period.
Exactly. Get more players back from injury, too. Think about that in particular. So, my goodness, the Red Wings out of nowhere fired Derek Lalonde and hired Todd McLellan immediately after Lalonde's firing. Kyle Busch of the Healthy Stretch Red Wings report predicted that Lalonde could have been fired after the end of the regular season, but man, Steve Yzerman just desperately needed that change immediately, like much sooner, because the Red Wings are so sick and tired of the selling for draft lottery picks, and I'm getting sick of it too. It's time to go all in and try to make a playoff push, and that's exactly what Steve Yzerman was thinking. He brought in Todd McLellan. Bob Boughner was an assistant coach. He's replaced by Trent Yawney. And since then, the Red Wings won 3 of their last 4 games, including 3 straight. Sure, they got mauled by the Toronto Maple Leafs, but Todd McLellan was just evaluating the Red Wings in their 5-2 loss to the Leafs at home. But since then, they beat the Washington Capitals 4-2. They beat the Pittsburgh Penguins 4-2 on New Year's Eve, and then tonight in Columbus, they just barely beat a much improved Columbus Blue Jackets team 5-4 in regulation on one of 2 breakaway goals by Jonathan Berggren of all people. He got a breakaway goal at home against Pittsburgh to open the scoring on New Year's Eve in 2024, and then earlier on Thursday night he got the game-winning breakaway goal with 35.7 seconds left, and now the Red Wings, as of right now, as I look at the standings on the NHL mobile app, the Red Wings are 7th place, 36 points. Oh, wait a minute.
They're 4 points out of the second wild card spot.
4, now just 4, but I know 5 spots, but really it's that Eastern Conference wild card race, it has been even heating up even more with the Penguins, the Blue Jackets, the Flyers, the Montreal Canadiens that have been catching up as of late. The Rangers have been regressing heavily. The Islanders have been regressing early. They still have Patrick Waugh as their head coach. And the Buffalo Sabres, they're just tanking heavily. My God. But all those teams that are in that race are chasing the Lightning and the Senators. So, but the race is on, even in Dan Campbell's words.
The race is on, and frankly, this is a race that should have happened and that needed to happen after the necessary change that happened. Because let's face it, the way this season started, 17-4, losing 9 of your last 12, looking absolutely lifeless and dead on the ice most nights. unacceptable, and just especially based on how last season ended, completely disgusting to look at compared to in terms of what effort that you're seeing this team give in compared to then and now. So yeah, change had to be made, and I'm glad it was made when it was made, because the longer this kept going, the more and more this season was going to sink out of control, and people were going
Like the Titanic.
people were going to start really coming after Eisman now. So this was the move that he had to make, and make now. Um, even I think now this is a move to where, if you want to say it's going to light a fire under him, sure. But this feels like a team, at least with some of the veterans, they needed. They had very little to no belief in what Lalonde was bringing, and they definitely needed a new voice, a new direction, and new guidance that's going to play into their strengths more. Try not to force them to play a system that doesn't benefit their strengths efficiently enough. And that's what we're seeing, McLellan. Because let's not forget, they did fire their assistant coach that was in charge of the penalty kill as well. That was another issue that was plaguing them badly as of late as well. So what we've seen with McLellan, now we've seen, obviously this is not his first rodeo as an NHL coach. He just last coached for the Kings last February, but he's had previous stints in both Edmonton and in San Jose, where he had a lot of playoff success with the Sharks, made the Western Conference Finals in back-to-back seasons in both 2010 and 2011, and he got his start as a coach as a Red Wings assistant back in 2005 when he was hired. He was even on the staff with Mike Babcock for that 2008 Stanley Cup run. So McLellan's got some time and experience and some history with this organization and with Eisman to an extent as well. So I'm not really surprised to see the fact that a deal was made to bring him in, but also immediately sign him to a multi-year deal. That lets you know that to me, this tells me that a move like this was planned at least for a couple weeks in advance. Because there's no way in one fell swoop that you announce, yeah, this guy's axed, and now the new guy's here, and oh, by the way, we just inked him to a new contract.
Yeah,
but
Trent Yawney is also good assistant coach.
Yeah, but I'm glad though they seem to have understood some simple basic fundamentals, and just finding out to not overcomplicate things. And in the words of their coach, just play effing hockey. And that's what we've seen as of late. They've been more loose. They've been more spirited. You know, we've seen Patrick Kane notch his 1,300 career point against the Capitals. We've seen Lucas Raymond being consistent with getting 2 points in that game and against the Penguins. You see DeBrincat getting two goals against the Capitals and 3 points tonight against Columbus. Larkin doing his consistent work. And then, like you said, with Berggren, with getting the winner, was it that on the breakaway? Did he just come out of the penalty box as well, or did he just come out?
He came out of the penalty box when Ben Sherratt blocked a shot.
After a block from Sherratt, the pass, perfect pass, breakaway, set up, perfect shot, and it was a thrilling moment. Hopefully a moment you can look back on and saying, hey, this was part of the turning point that led to them going on that run that ended up with them in the playoffs. Because like I said,
knockout punch.
They're only 4 points back of that second wild card spot. Let's see what they can do between now and the All-Star break. But, you know, things are not as bleak now as they were just a few short weeks ago, thankfully.
Yeah. And the fans can now put all their excuses away, because the Red Wings are now making a deeper push. And there's still 3.5 months left in the regular season. That's still a lot of time for the Red Wings to catch up. Think about that. So forget the lottery picks, forget the excuses, forget the blame game. It's time to put up or shut up and play effing hockey, like Todd McLellan said. It's go time. And thus far, with those 3 straight wins, the Red Wings have been proving it, and it's a start. Let's just hope they keep it up. And they got the Winnipeg Jets on the road Saturday at 7, and then they got a home stand against the Ottawa Senators, the Chicago Blackhawks, the Seattle Kraken. and the San Jose Sharks. It's at least a 4-game homestand. So the Blackhawks are bad. The Red Wings should really handle their business there with Todd McLellan now as their head coach. The Red Wings should rout the Blackhawks like 8-1 or something like that.
We'll see. You can never overestimate your opponent in the NHL.
Right. But still, you got to keep it in check. Just got to make sure.
Or rather, underestimate them. Excuse me.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, still got to play effing hockey, no matter what. The Pistons. How about them? They took 3 out of 4 out west. The first 3, they beat the Phoenix Suns 133 to 125. They beat the Los Angeles Lakers 117 to 114. They beat the Utah Jazz 135 to 134 in regulation. Jaden Ivey with the and one.
The Kings.
Yeah, the Kings, Sacramento. Sorry. Yeah. Beat Kings 135 to 134. There we go. Yep. They beat the Sacramento Kings 135 to 134. The game-winning 4-point play with 3.1 seconds left by Ivy. And they come up short to Nikola Jokic and the Denver Nuggets 134 to 121. They still won 3 out of 4 out west, and then they come back and beat the Orlando Magic at home 105 to 96 just recently on Wednesday. But Jaden Ivey in that game suffered a broken fibula in a collision in his left leg. He'll miss most of the remainder of the regular season, but he'll be reevaluated in 4 weeks. So it's kind of like the same injury that Aiden Hutchinson suffered in Dallas for the Lions. This is the exact same injury, athlete injury, whether it's football or basketball or any other sport.
Very similar in terms of grade of injury. Thankfully, not as gruesome or as graphic as we saw with Aiden Hutchinson, or even to an extent with Khalil Dorsey as well. But still a very unfortunate and frankly heartbreaking moment for Jaden Ivey, who had just gotten back. I believe this was his first game back from a previous injury as well. And not only that, Taylor, his mother was in the building. So I'm sure that was not a pleasant moment for both mother or son in that night. But I will have to say, though, if anybody is trying to get on the player Cole Anthony that went after that made contact with him, trust me,
accident.
Complete accident. That he was going for the ball. It was no malicious intent. You could see the reaction on his face afterwards. He was completely distraught over what had happened. So again, I have no blame or ill will towards Cole Anthony on him in that. It's an accident. Things happen. You just pray that nothing was too severe and that he'll be able to get back as soon as possible. Now, what I was able to looking for updates on Twitter X, see what an analysis or medical experts or even those involved or close to the team would be reporting on. And some sources had indicated that apparently this was a best case scenario for Jaden Ivey. So, which frankly, you mentioned Aiden Hutchinson. This is quite similar to what happened to Aiden as well, because this is what was apparently happened with Jaden Ivey. No ankle dislocation, no torn ligament,
wow,
no tendon damage, just a clean break. So he underwent a successful surgery. He's going to be reevaluated in 4 weeks. So the fact that he's already scheduled for a reevaluation only just a month from now leads me to believe that, thankfully, this injury is not as serious or as threatening as some could have thought it could have potentially have been. And there is a slight chance that we may see Jaden Ivey return to play at some point later this season, maybe in time for the playoffs. Hint, hint. Maybe if, it comes down to it, the Pistons are in a situation where they're in the play-in tournament and Ivy is cleared and ready to go. We could see that happening as well. But even still, it's just an unfortunate situation because we've yet to see a moment, or rather a full season, a full entire healthy season of both Cade Cunningham and Jaden Ivey playing together, which is very, very unfair because you have seen the chemistry build between those two on the court. You've seen how they've fed off each other, how they've made each other better as a result. And the production that Ivy is able to bring in to take some of the load off Cade in some instances and circumstances and situations. So losing a piece like that, make no doubt about it, that's going to hurt tremendously. But the fact that, the primary concern was not so much about, what does this mean for the team, This was more so about, no, this is a teammate that is in a bad spot. He got the support that he needed from his brothers, from his fans, and from his family, and he's going to need all the support that he can from those three key groups as he makes his road to recovery. Best of wishes for Jaden. Hope he has a speedy recovery as possible. Look forward to seeing him back. Now, as for what the Pistons themselves has done, they can hang their hat on the fact that in addition to their West Coast road trip, they've now won 5 out of their last 7 games. They've gotten the head coach fired. And not only that, they've passed the Bulls up in the conference standings to where they're now in the 9th seed. They're in the 9th seed. They're in play-in territory. They're at 15-18. They already have more wins on January 1st, January 2nd, going to January 3rd now, 2025, that they had all of last year of the 2023-2024 season. They had 14 wins all of last season. They just got number 15 here at the start of January. And frankly, if that's not a sign of things being on the up and up in Detroit, or at least for the Pistons, I don't know what else to tell you. Because the way they keep going, most certainly they're going to be in a spot to where they're going to be playing for the play-in, if not, dare I say, making the playoffs outright. Obviously, based on how weaker the Eastern Conference is compared to the West, but still, that should not be any discredit or disrespect on what the type of progress that the Pistons have already made in this first year under JB Bickerstaff and his crew.
So, Det Fan Man wanted to ask on YouTube, the live chat. So, with the Ivy injury, is there more pressure on Asar Thompson to develop?
I wouldn't say more pressure on Asar Thompson. I would say it's going to take more. I think you're going to see more Ron Holland get more minutes out there. And I think you're going to see more Malik Beasley. We're seeing more Malik Beasley anyway, but I think you're going to see more of an uptick in his minutes as well to help compensate
for more threes.
Yeah, for the Jaden Ivey entry, you're going to see more Malik Beasley and more Ron Holland off the bench is what I would say is my answer to that. Obviously, this also means it's going to be more of a workload for Cade as well, but I think he's proven himself that he can handle it so far. And speaking of Cade, he is now, as of this recording, he is, as I've seen in the releasing the first batch of fan votes for the All-Star game in the Eastern Conference, Cade is 6, only 6 amongst the guards. We're talking guys like Trae Young, Donovan Mitchell, Dame Lillard, you name it. There's a top heavy group of names in there, and for Cade to be only 6, to me is not that bad at all.
He's getting up there.
He's getting up there, and I think that should be more of an incentive for the fans to keep voting for him, because as far as I can tell, the players know that Cade's got game. If you're getting props from LeBron James and Kevin Durant in the same damn week of how good your game is and how much of a future and potential that you have, you have the respect of your peers. Now it's just a matter of Cade's name getting out more to the masses, to the casuals, to the casual public of that more mainstream audience, to where the more they know of him, the more they see of him, the more that they can get that vote out for him to see him in more All-Star games and situations like this, because we're seeing Cade truly start to live up to his full potential. Absolutely.
Yeah. So the Pistons have a homestand of their own. The Timberwolves, the Trailblazers, the Nets, and the Golden State Warriors. At least 4 game, at least a 4-game homestand there, just like the Red Wings.
I think they got 5 of their next 6 games coming up at least 4 of their next 5 or 5 of their next 6 coming up at home, because one of those is like a mini road game, mini road trip going out to Brooklyn to face the Knicks, and then they're back home to face the Warriors. So yeah, prime opportunity.
Yeah, that's 5 or 6. All right.
Prime opportunity to gain more ground in the standings. And you're starting it off by facing a 7-win Hornets team that has lost 4 games in a row. That should be red meat for you to not only have a good game, get an easy win, but also move up in the standings. So you set the tone with that win against the Hornets, and you keep that momentum building for the remainder of this homestand. Raw
meat, in other words, as Gordon Ramsay would say, it's raw. So let's get to a little bit of Tigers here with our What's Your Great segment. The Tigers have.
By the way, slight little bit of breaking news. I don't know how much of this is going to impact the Pistons or not, but apparently Jimmy Butler has requested a trade. Oh. And apparently, according to The Athletic, the Heat star is prepared for a possibility of any team in a potential deal. That is coming from a source to The Athletic. Just thought I want to pass along that bit of news. Food for thought.
All right. Well, we'll just leave it at that. The What's Your Great segment, like I mentioned before, the Tigers, we were just going to get to them. The Detroit Tigers signed New York Yankees infielder Gleyber Torres to a 1-year, $15 million contract. Torres will play second base mostly, sometimes shortstop, so Colt Keith will transition to first base. So Spencer Torkelson, he will be DH or get sent down to the minors. So what's your grade on that?
I'm going to give this one a B. Torres, based on his numbers alone, should not be seen as nothing else but an upgrade in the lineup versus what we had in our lineup last year. He's a guy who can come in, basically be that replacement for Torkelson, essentially against righties or lefties. You did mention Colt Keith will be the transition to first base. Torkelson, I believe this is going to mean Tork is going to be DH. He's still going to be given his chances. Scott Harris has already sat down with him. I believe AJ Hinch has sat down with him as well. Just let him know this is the plan. This is what we're going with. We're still keeping you in the fold. We're still giving you a chance to earn your way here. So obviously this means they're not giving up on him yet, but you got to make adjustments, and clearly this was not the trajectory that they wanted for him. So now they got to make it audible and go in a different direction. We'll see how he'll respond to that. But I've noticed, though, with this addition and even with the amount of money that they paid, they're still in good spot to try and add a couple more pieces to this team. Most notably, one Alex Bregman.
Yep, which we've been tracking down for a while.
I mean, we don't know yet for sure what type of deal or amount or details that the Tigers have offered. All we've known or we've heard as of late is that they're in talks. They've had discussions. There may be a hang up on not necessarily the amount of money, but maybe more so the amount of years. I don't know if it's an issue between Scott Boras and Scott Harris, wherever the case may be. But to me, if it comes down to it, find a compromise in the amount of years.
5 or 6.
Well, again, we don't know for certain. We can only go on speculation. We're not concrete facts as of yet.
Yep.
But if it comes down to a difference between 5 years to 6 years, just give them 5 years with a +1 option, and see if you can use that to sweeten the deal.
Right. It's only a 1-year differential either way.
1 year differential, and I think with the opt-in, opt-out year, that could be a good benefit to be used either way, especially if you want to look at a potential trade situation, trade block, trade piece deal type of scenario with that type of contract. But to me, Bregman is just such a perfect fit on this team. Not only connections with AJ Hinch, I think one of the catchers on this team was a teammate of his back in college at LSU. So to me, if you were having reports about discussions going on. To me, it just speaks to me that the Tigers should be amongst the front runners to potentially land him. I really haven't heard much discussions or ongoing reports about this with regards to the teams like, say, the Red Sox or even the Yankees or even with the Astros themselves. It's
Blue
just
Jays?
or even the Blue Jays. Maybe the Blue Jays, but to me, the constant I've been seeing now for the past few days is just Bregman, Detroit, Bregman, Detroit, 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 Detroit. So if it's not the Tigers, who the hell is it?
Right. So there you go. One more thing before we wrap it up with our What We Learned segment. The Michigan Wolverines beat the Alabama Crimson Tide again in college football, 19-13 in the ReliaQuest Bowl. So the Wolverines defense shined again like they did in Columbus in week 13 against the Buckeyes. But since then, the Buckeyes have rolled in the college football playoff. But really, honestly, that Michigan Wolverines defense continued to shine. And now, after that, next season, they're going to be looking at Bryce Underwood being the starting quarterback. The Wolverines will be rolling again next year. But thoughts on this one?
Well, I'm going to definitely start with the defense and giving them their deserved flowers, because not only were they on a roll and have been on a roll since Columbus, but in general against Alabama and Jalen Milroe, they have been stifling. They have owned Jalen Milroe the way that Nikola Jokic has owned the Lakers as of late. I mean, let's not consider the fact in this game alone, 5 sacks, an interception, at least 2 fumbles forced. One of those was on a strip sack. You saw a sequence of plays early on in the game, especially when it was pouring rain on the monsoon, where it was just a comedy of errors for Alabama. Every other play, we're seeing a turnover, a sack, a fumble, an interception, a 3-and-out, something like some type of disaster type of play go wrong, to where if Michigan had a more competent offense, that game would have been over in the first half. That would have been an easy 30-0 bare minimum blowout in the first half, based on how things are going. Because with that defense, in total now against Jalen Milroe in 2 games, they've sacked his ass 11 times. Mind you, this game was without their starters. There was no Mason Graham. There was no Kenneth Grant. There wasn't even Josiah Stewart. There was no Will Johnson. Okay? Those guys were sitting this one out, getting ready for the NFL draft, and bless them on the on that part as well. But for the defense to be this productive and this much of a wrecking force, should be a compliment to coaching, to the job Wink Martindale has done for this season on the second half, finding the adjustments, finding the ways to grow and develop within the players, within the system. And also, not just on the defensive side, but still on the offense, knowing that they're one-dimensional, knowing that they had limitations in the passing front, still leaned on their running game, and they still carried them to victory, figuratively and literally. Jordan Marshall, he shined brightly in this one, 23 carries, 100 yards, more than deservedly deserved. You know, you make an argument, did he deserve the bowl game MVP award, either him or Zavada? But even still, this was an example of all 3 faces playing complementary football. The defense being the star of the game, the offense getting necessary, timely scores when necessary, not being completely, at least moving the ball enough to where they were getting, like I said, getting points, getting field goals, and they weren't turning the ball over the way Alabama was. And your special teams, with Zavada being as clutch as he was, hitting 4 for 4 with his field goals. And oh, by the way, he's coming back next year too, as is Derek Moore. It's a nice springboard to 2025 when you have Jordan Marsh, guys like him, you know, the players already aforementioned, and guys like Bryce Underwood coming in, guys like Justice Haynes coming in on the transfer portal, Andrew Marsh as well. You know, just knowing what you have, what you're going to be building upon on your defense, the way this season ended on your for your defense, the way you did against Ohio State and Alabama, that should motivate your defense to want to be even better next year, which is a scary thought. So, frankly, all you got to do is, if you're Michigan, is have a decent, adequate season from your offense, forget about whether or not you win the Big Ten. You're easily back in the fold of trying to get back to the college football playoff, especially with this 12-team format. Easily.
Yeah, easily is right. Yeah, they can get back to getting route wins as well when they had that national championship season
And
the year before.
think about this. This was considered a down year. They had the 5 losses, but guess what? They won all their rivalry games. They won all their trophy games. They beat USC. They beat Ohio State again, and they bookended 2024 by beating Alabama. Like come on now. Yeah. If you're
Twice in a
Michigan,
row.
if you're a Michigan fan, you would knowing that hey, you're going to have a regression year after coming off of 3 straight Big Ten championships and winning a national championship. If me to tell me, yeah, you lost 5 games, but you still beat Michigan State, you still beat Ohio State, you even beat USC, and you beat Alabama at the end at the end of the year, you'll take that 1,000%. Especially knowing what's coming up on the horizon for 2025.
Yeah. So, what all did we learn in the first episode of the Michigan Sports Truth podcast in 2025?
We learned that the Wolverines football team is not to be messed with for 2025. We learned that the Pistons are making impressive strides in development progress at an efficient rate, even though there's going to be some potential setback to that with the injury to Jaden Ivey. We also learned, though, that the Tigers are trying to do something in free agency. I know we haven't heard the announcement yet. I know it's getting frustrating to some fans. I think even Ben Verlander was expressing a frustration of himself on social media about why hasn't this gotten done yet? What are you doing? Tigers, sign Alex Bregman already. And I'll say this. If you see that type of public pressure from some certain connected folks to the organization, namely Justin Verlander's brother saying this, then maybe this could be an incentive for Chris Ilitch to say, hey, talk to him and Scott Harris say, hey, all right, let's get this deal done. Let's do what we can. Let's bring Bregman to Detroit. So we'll see what they do there, especially after adding Gleyber Torres. We learned that the Tigers are still trying to do something to add upon the momentum of the magic ride that was the 2024 season. We learned that the Red Wings, frankly, they got the kick in the ass that they needed all along by firing their head coach. They got a new coach in, new voice to lead and guide that room, and so far it's worked like a charm. They've gone 3-1. They have had consistent play from their biggest stars, and they're only a few points out of that second wild card spot. And frankly, lastly, what we learned about the Lions is what haven't we learned about the Lions? What their mentality is, their tenacity, their character, their personality. We learned that they can literally play you anywhere and in any condition, under any circumstance, and still have what it takes to beat you, period. And we've learned that they're a well-coached team, a 14-2 team for a reason. We learned that they have players that have been performing at Pro Bowl caliber for a reason. And we learned that this division is the toughest in football this year for a reason as well, when you consider the Lions and the Vikings and the Packers to an extent. But we also learned that they're ready and built. They are built for this. They've said this multiple times over the past few years about the grit and their character and what they're built for. Well, they're built for this. They're built for moments like this. They're built for situations like this, and they're built for games like Sunday night against the Vikings. Everything on the line. Winner take all. Winner gets the division. Winner gets the number 1 seed and home field advantage,
and vice versa. So that is everything that we've learned on the Michigan Sports Truth podcast on YouTube and all social media and on Spreaker in audio form. By the way, yeah, will do. Sounds like this is absolutely yes. So, yep, of course. Thank you, Fan Man. Spread the word about our podcast and our YouTube channel. Yep. With that being said, I'm Taylor Phillips. He's Ed Smith. Follow the Michigan Sports Truth podcast on X, Instagram, and TikTok at Michigan_Truth. And like its Facebook page, subscribe to its YouTube channel at the Michigan Sports Truth podcast. Like I said, like its videos and turn on all notifications on the bell icon. Watch its live episodes in full to learn everything. Click or tap on live in our videos to access our latest episodes. Follow it and listen to it in audio form on Spreaker, like I also mentioned. Also, join its supporters club. Follow me on X, TikTok, Instagram, Blue Sky, and YouTube at DT2Phillips with 2 L's. Follow Ed Smith on X, Instagram, TikTok, Twitch, Blue Sky, and YouTube at EdSmith313. Business shoutouts go to Athletico Physical Therapy on Woodward in Ferndale, the B4 Foundation, Baldwin Family Healthcare, Dental Center, Cadillac Grill, Cadillac Nutrition, Cali Tickets. Call 877-225-8425 or visit calitickets.com. Cups and Donuts, Creative Embroidery for designing the Michigan Sports Truth podcast logo on my long sleeve shirt and t-shirt. Cuts by Melanie in Lake City. I need a haircut soon. The El Cilantro Taco Shop in Petoskey. Hooters of Saginaw. It's a Denise Jewelry in Lake City. Let's roll with it. Rolled ice cream in Cadillac. Michigan Coffee Company. Northern Auto Lab. Northern Star Event Rentals. 231-884-8195 and on Facebook. Positive Chimney and Fireplace. Pro Quality Cleaners. The Raven Social Restaurant. Union Barber in Birmingham and Ferndale. United Food Services. United Food Service Solutions of Grand Ledge, United Mobile Power Wash and Dry Ice Works in Southfield, and Well-Being with Catherine Palms in Traverse City. The Michigan Sports Truth podcast is a presentation of the Huddle Sports Network. Our next episode is next Thursday, of course, as usual. Until then, for Ed Smith, I'm Taylor Phillips. Happy New Year. We always observe and detect the truth about Michigan sports because the truth is out there. Stay on the lookout. Hit them with a hind.
Happy New Year, everyone. And a quick, slight note to my usual outro. Based on the news and everything that we saw yesterday and the day before in New Orleans, obviously, prayers to those involved in that situation. But also for everyone, let's take this as a bit of a note of advice for this upcoming weekend, especially this Sunday night. Please be as safe as you can. Look out for each other as much as you can. Mind your surroundings. Take care of each other. And please, once again, I can't stress this enough. Please be safe.
Yes, exactly. Everyone be safe in the world. Ta-ta.